Hey everyone, so I just want to share with you some of the things I've been learning today. So I have a protest coming up on Saturday. It's against eating lamb as a form of Australian culture, which eating lamb has no relevance to Australian culture in any way, shape or form. And the most disheartening thing that I think I've learned today, because obviously I want to know my facts, I've been learning a lot of stuff to talk about on the megaphone to people on Saturday about sheep. And I don't know if most people are aware about this, but as a guess, what do you think? At what temperature do you think a sheep starts to suffer because of heat in Australia? Take a wild guess. Now, a sheep starts to suffer from heat stress at 26 degrees. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. 26 degrees. That's actually damn right disgusting. Like, we have sheep in the Northern Territory. We have sheep in Queensland. We have sheep the north of Western Australia. These places get to 40 to 50 degrees. Is there any, there is no, moral standpoint a farmer can ever say he cares about his sheep when he sticks them in fields knowing full well they're suffering from 26 degrees onwards. It infuriates me, absolutely infuriates me, the fact that these poor sheep are stuck in fields, fences all the way around them where they can't even seek shade. No trees, no nothing, sit there and boil to death. I also learnt today that when we cut their horns off, their horns actually help to regulate their heat. They get to regulate their own body temperature with their horns. And guess what we do? We cut them off with no painkillers, no numbing agents, nothing. That's like me cutting your arm off. And I'm just like, every time I learn a little bit more about what we do to animals, the more I'm fuming. I'm actually a little bit disappointed in myself, to be honest, that I didn't know this much about sheep, because it doesn't matter what I've learned. I've learned so much about so many different animals, and I knew a little bit about sheep, but I didn't know this much about sheep. And the more you learn about what we do to animals, the more infuriating it is. I was lucky enough to have a conversation with what can only be classed as the crazy sheep man. And he knows who he is, about sheep, and had a really good conversation about sheep. And for those, I wonder how many people are actually aware. I didn't even know this. They have, ram farms. Semen is big business. In fact, we send semen on exports to other countries, our prime semen. So what they do is they farm male sheep, and what they do is on a daily basis, they basically get the sheep, they tickle the balls, and then they stick what could only be classed as an electric dildo up the sheep's arse to force them to come, right? These sheep have to go through that every day, and when their sperm count drops, they're sent to slaughter. We have specific jobs in this country where your job is to fondle sheep day in, day out. That is like a slave trade. That's like the bloody sex trafficking trade. We are appalling. Human species are appalling. And how anybody can sit there and say, we look after our animals, we love our animals. There's no love in bestiality. There is no love on letting animals suffer in fields from 26 degrees upwards. Like today, it's been about 30 degrees out there today. All the sheep have suffered, none of them entitled to any shade. And for some of these female sheep, do you know what the sad part is about these female sheep? Farmers, right? Like female sheep, right? Like female humans, they have 2 nipples. They're not meant to have more than 2 babies. But they've basically genetically modified rams to make sure more semen gets through. So sheep, well, they're now farmers are pushing them, taking pride. Oh, my sheep's going to have 5. My sheep's going to have 6. The mother can't feed them all. And do you know what happens? High mortality rate. And then you've got a sheep that are suffering with pregnant toxemia. Do people know what pregnant toxemia is? It's where the sheep's back end of the legs collapse. This is actually really common in sheep farming, ridiculously common. This is where her back legs collapse. She's given birth. She can't attend to her own babies. So then she has to sit there and watch her babies die in front of her because she can't help them. And then it'll take her 4 to 5, sometimes 7 days to die. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? She has to sit there and watch her own babies, and sheep have very high maternal instincts, just like human mothers do. They make excellent mothers, and they will never leave their baby unless their own life is at risk from like a predator or whatever. And do you know why we have pregnant toxemia on these sheep? It's because farmers don't give them the adequate amount of food for the amount of babies they're brewing up in their belly while they're forcing these sheep to have more babies. It's actually downright disgusting. It's downright disgusting what we're allowed to get away with and repeatedly get away with. And do you also know? Sheep have no laws to protect them against animal abuse. It's the same reason why you can cut their back ends off. It's called mulching. I keep getting the wrong word, mulching. We've basically bred sheep to produce too much skin, but their back end gets wrinkly, right? Now there is another sheep that they've brought out that they can replace with this sheep, but oh no, farmers don't like changing their ways. So to deal with this, what they do is they pull the skin. It's about 7 centimetres, and they get some shears. Let me get 7 centimetres off each one of your ass cheeks and then cut it off with a pair of shears and see how much pain you're in. Because they're given no painkillers, no numbing agents, nothing. These poor animals feel absolutely everything, and then they have to sit in Australia's sun baking with flies around their ass, and then them still getting bloody fly blown. How does a farmer stop all these sheep getting fly blown? You check them, every single one of them every day, but guess what? They can't do that because they can't be arsed. Or they've got thousands and thousands of sheep. Well, if you can't look after thousands and thousands of sheep, then maybe you shouldn't have any. Because I jolly well know that if I had thousands of dogs and I couldn't look after them and they're all dying, I would be done under Animal Welfare Acts. I would be classed as an animal abuser. Yet we're doing to this to thousands of sheep, and guess what? Oh, it's just farming. It's fine. Do what you want to them. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And these, like, the things I've been learning today is just, it's like my head explodes every time I go, like, I feel a bit annoyed at myself. I've known a little bit about sheep, but not too much about sheep. I've learnt a lot about chickens, I've learnt a lot about cows, I've learnt a lot about pigs, I've learnt a lot about emus, kangaroos, you know. But it's just like, after a while, you stop trying to learn about it because it just upsets you. It's soul destroying that we live in a world that allows us to abuse animals repeatedly over and over and over and over again. So to put it into numbers for you, when I talk about mulesing and cutting their back end off with no painkillers, no numbing agents, and cutting their horns off, to put numbers into perspective that I can't even give you a whole number on. So we have a stupid amount of death mortality rates with baby lambs dying, right? So if you are born, say between August to, if I remember this rightly, October, August to October, like sheep can die when they come out their mums, like, because they won't find shade, they won't go under it. Well, most of them don't even have bloody trees or anything, but they won't. And there's one reason why sheep do this is so they can look all around them for predators to make sure they're giving birth safely. And if they need to get up and run away with the baby it's still in them, they can do. So and obviously they're not giving no shade anyway, so it doesn't really bloody matter. So in between August and October, from 8 degrees lower, when the baby comes out, it freezes to death. There's no hope. There's no chance in hell they can survive. But do farmers give any of their sheep, like, shelter? Shelter from the rain, the wind, the cold? No, they don't. And between these months, it gets to down minus bloody 5. These animals have got no hope in hell. They're born and then they die straight away and they freeze to death. Welcome to the human world. Your mum can't even go and take you to anywhere safety because guess what? She's got wire fence around her that stops us going anywhere that the bloody world doesn't want you to go. Oh, it's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. So in winter months, they've got a silly amount of people who are going out and they walk around and it's like, sometimes people can walk around in a field and find 50 plus lambs in one field that have been born and just freeze to death straight away. This is standard practice. Standard practice and it's normal. And Australian farmers like to make you to believe that we love our animals. We'd cause them no harm. Please. You've got males who have been basically sex trafficked until their bloody semen count drops and then they're bloody sent to slaughter. Oh, sorry, I went off on a bit of rant there. So we don't know how many animals sheep are bred in Australia. But what I can tell you is we kill 20 million sheep, 20 million lambs annually, 30 million sheep annually on Australia soil. Australia is the largest exporter of lamb and sheep to the Middle East and other countries. Do you understand? We are the biggest exporters of lamb and sheep in the world. How many of these animals have had their back ends cut off, their horns cut off, with no painkillers, no numbing agents, nothing? And this is standard practice. This is nothing more than a blood-hungry, thirsty country that hasn't even begun to think about the suffering of these animals that are sat in fields panting with their tongue hanging out their mouths and dying in 40-degree heat because they've got no shade or no nothing because the average person drives past them in cars and doesn't batter an eyelid at their suffering. Shits me. Absolutely shits me to tears. That's what I've got to say. And do you know what? Farmers, there's no regulations. There's no regulations about cutting their wool. Do you know what I mean? And if you cut a sheep's thick wool off in the middle of summer, it's just about as much damaging as doing it in the middle of winter. Because their bodies have to learn how to regulate with the heat. Their wool actually helps to keep them cool and actually keeps them warm. And you need to cut it off at when it's not hot, it's not cold, springtime or whatever, where the animal can start growing it through the summer months so it keeps them warm in winter. But no, we'll just cut it off when we want it, when we can sell it. And if they freeze to death, oh well, stuff them. We've caused absolutely nothing but misery for animals in this country. Hugely. So I'm also asking everyone, if you are in Melbourne, I would like to invite you all to attend my protest that is happening on Saturday. It starts at 12 o'clock, Burke Street Mall, and we're having a protest and to explain that eating lamb is not culture, it's nothing more than cruelty. So that's all I've got to say. I wanted to have a rant about lambs because I'm feeling pretty naffed. And I'm pretty surprised at the fact that I didn't know this much about lambs either, or sheep for that matter. I knew some stuff, but it's like anything. The more you learn, the more you're just like, oh, goddamn humans, the human world that just thinks it's okay to abuse animals for their own self-gain. And the thing that pisses me off the most is like when people eat this lamb, let's put this into numbers for you. 20 million, 30 million. That's 50 million sheep that are slaughtered on Australian soil. And I can tell you what, I bet every single one of those mouths, if not, then easily 90% of them all need food being brought in. And where does that food come from? It comes from places like the Amazon rainforest. It comes from places that is basically chopping down trees to feed your food, that's killing my own family's future and your own kids' future, just to roll around your mouth for less than 3 minutes while they've had a lifetime of bloody suffering and then been executed and had to line up for their own execution, their own death. Because I tell you what, I've seen some awful slaughterhouse footage of what we do to sheep and lambs in slaughterhouses. It's like that bloody meat workplace, I can't remember the name of it, in Victoria, where the guy was cutting off sheep's heads in front of one another and then kicking their heads across the bloody slaughterhouse room in front of one another like it was a game of bloody rugby. With these animals shaking in fear, one of them stood under the bloody kill table that they stick them on to slit their necks, shaking in fear and trying to hide, and then gets dragged by its ears to round and then gets back in the queue. We have a lot to answer for. We have turned this place into nothing more than a bloody horrible horror movie. Seriously, like, there's no words for what we have turned this world into for other living beings that we share this planet with. Is downright disgusting, and it needs to stop. So if you know anyone who's eating lamb for this bloody Australia Day, then you tell them. Tell them what happens to lambs, because everything I'm telling you is bloody gospel, and it's downright disgusting, because I know for a fact if I did that to a dog, you'd all deem me a psychopath. That's all I gotta say. Share the video, get the truth out there about sheep, and give Australia Day the boot. Change the date and change the plate, because it's got to end. All of it.